your book, but I still want to hear it from the horse's mouth. Please, sir, could you just tell us in the hours, in the minutes, in the moments leading up to that phone call, what were you thinking?
Like as I said in the book, it's not supposed to be a biography, but I wanted to explain circumstances around the election. The initial title of the book would have been My Last Hours in Office or something, but I felt that if you do that, I will limit it. Because during the period when I was the president, there are certain things that were negative that affected the government. There were certain things that were also positive that promoted the government. And I felt that if you are writing something, it's good to bring some of this, like the issue of Chibok girls. Yes. So we have to reflect it, like the issue of deregulation of the petroleum products that people, almost for the country was shut down for about 2 weeks or so. Those are key things that I need to mention because people want to ask those questions. And of course, the things we do for young people, like the UWIN program, the Agropreneur program, that really help to promote young people, the PRESID, the Presidential Special Scholarship for Innovation and Development, and so on. So there were a few positive things with it that we also needed to capture so that people can have an idea about what happened in government. So we changed it to transitional hours, so expanded it a little more. But if you ask specifically why I made that phone call, you see, it was an interesting period. When elections are coming up, as a president, I have security reports very regularly. Sometimes heads of security agencies will even come to brief you even before they send in the report. So, and elections are a period where the country is tense. So you have an idea about what was going on in the country. Most people don't really know in details the issues surrounding what you know, because you are sitting president. And I knew that there was significant external interest in the Nigerian elections. Especially, maybe because some Americans had, this group of Americans that predicted that Nigeria was going to disintegrate within that period. So whether people were working to ensure that their prediction manifests, I don't know. But there was a significant show of interest. Secretary of State? Secretary of State don't visit the country at the eve of elections, traditionally, because they want to keep away, even if they're interested, they don't want to be seen as directly manipulating the electoral process. But before the elections, America, the State House, sent for some northern governors to have a meeting in the U.S. to discuss the Nigerian election. And of course, Nigerian election, we have North and South divide, Christian-Muslim divide. They invited the northern governors that are Muslims. The Christians were not invited to the U.S. And the Secretary of State came directly into the country to have various meetings. I don't see as a president of Nigeria for me to engage with America for a fight. It's not going to be necessary. It will affect my citizens and so on. So, but we saw the significant external interest. And you saw what was happening in the country. I wouldn't want to go further than this. Maybe when I publish my biography, I'll go a little more than this. There are certain things that were happening. So, from when I was to vote, you bring technology to help the voting process. The card readers were introduced by the INEC. That because myself, my wife, and my mother used to vote in the same polling booth.
You said so in your book.
Yes. The card reader rejected me as a sitting president. So I was not to vote. Rejected my wife and rejected my mother. The country was tense. Even at that point, I could have even stopped the elections. So something is wrong. And I won't go further. What happened in southern Nigeria was different from what was happening in the north. Because the card reader rejected so many voters in the south, and so many people were frustrated and went back home. Meanwhile, in the north, the instruction was given. So they jettisoned the car readers and they were voting. The same INEC officials in the South were insisting that it must be accredited by the car reader. All these things came up much later. So you really see something not quite right. So from that time, of course, you'll be getting security reports, you know what was happening. And when the results started coming in, of course, you will know the results long time before it will be announced, even before it will be brought to the center for that you already know. And that is why these days, even the last election in Ghana, the vice president congratulated Mahama, even before, because you know their results and so on. So he knew where they were going, and I know that the country was tense. I know, maybe because of the statements made by Buhari himself when he said both the baboon and the dog will be soaked in blood. So young people were kind of mobilized to the level of frenzy to cause maximum violence if people don't get what they want. People were announcing, okay, they will run a parallel government and so on. But those doesn't bother me. But since I was the president of the country, and I also know that even in the Niger Delta, people were also ready to fight back, even though there are not many. But I know they could cause maximum damage, because if the Niger Delta people are going to fight, instead of fight, they will not fight human beings, they will fight oil installations. And it will cause maximum damage to the country, which I don't think it was. So from within that period, a lot of things were going through my head. They process so many things per second. And until you are into that kind of a situation, then you know how many things get through your brain every second. And I reflected back. As a president, I worked with a very strong economic team. People like Ngozi, who was the finance minister and the coordinating minister of the economy, Aganga, who was the trade and investment minister, Dr. who was doing very well in agriculture. So we have done very well. We encourage people to come and invest in the country. And Nigeria was the number one country for foreign direct investment in Africa then. And our economy was. So when I have encouraged people, in most cases when Aganga make arrangements, when we travel, I used to address investors before I hand over to him. So my face was seen as the face driving the economy of the country. And I looked through that. If we have maximum crisis, all these people that have encouraged to come and invest in Nigeria, they will lose their money and so on. Besides the fact that people will die. In fact, I had in a good authority how so many houses in Abuja would have been burnt if things have gone a particular way. But even if I had won the election genuinely, yes, I had no problem. But since they manipulated the process and they are announcing figures that I was the president of the country, I'm not the one to doubt the result of INEC that appointed the people. So it will look silly for me because I appointed the people. So I said, well, it is my fault. So I will not want the country and investors to suffer. So the best thing to do was for me to announce the result, not to allow INEC to announce the result. Because if I allow INEC to announce the result, the over-jubilation, they could do havoc to some parts. So while waiting, I announced the results. That was why I made that phone call. It was to announce the result, even though they were still collating. But I said, let me announce the result. And I remember that day in the sitting room, I was there. I know Minister Ngozi was there. Some ministers were there. Some of my aides were there. And people were talking. The way things are going, the different options. Yes. But I was just listening because as the head of state then, I was more interested in the security of the country. I was not too much interested about the fate of Jonathan after the election. That it didn't bother me that much.